Tonight, we hear from the Maryland senator who met face-to-face with the mistakenly deported Maryland man being held in El Salvador.
They haven't told him anything about why he was sent. They didn't tell him anything about that.
The senator giving details about where Kilmar Abrego Garcia is being held, what the senator is now saying about his treatment and mission to get him back to the U.S., all while President Trump insists he will never be allowed back. And tonight, the new video showing the alleged gunman, the stepson of a deputy, opening fire. 2 people killed, 6 wounded. One survivor describing the terror, playing dead after being wounded, the moment she was afraid of being shot again.
All I can think of is what my mom and dad always told me to do during an active shooter drill. Stay down, play dead. So I released all the muscles in my body, closed my eyes, and I held my breath.
A $30 million lottery winner gone under mysterious circumstances, and there are no shortages of suspects. Tonight, a sneak peek at the special 2020 Unlucky Numbers.
Up at him, and I looked at the ticket again, and I looked up at him. I said, you won $30 million.
It's been a landmark week for those seeking the answer to one of humanity's existential questions. Are we alone? We're joined by the lead researcher who came out with the earth-shattering new findings about life outside of our planet. And 3 months after those deadly and devastating Los Angeles wildfires, nature and animals are slowly but surely coming back. The Star Wars surprise, the major star confirming the rumors in person, he's joining the franchise.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Ramos in for Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We're standing by to hear from FSU's president just one day after that horrific shooting. But we begin tonight with major new developments in that showdown over a father mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador. Just a short time ago, Senator Chris Van Hollen returned to the U.S. after meeting face-to-face with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The senator revealing Garcia has been moved from the notorious prison there to a different facility, but still fears for his life. These are the pictures of Van Hollen with Kilmar Abrego Garcia yesterday in El Salvador. The purpose of that trip was to try to pressure El Salvador and the Trump administration to do something about the situation. But President Trump today insisted, once again, Garcia will never be allowed back in the U.S. On this busy Friday night, our Rachel Scott leads us off from the White House.
Tonight, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen arriving back in the United States, recounting his conversation with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the undocumented immigrant deported to that notorious prison in El Salvador because of an administrative error. In their meeting, Abrego Garcia wearing a baseball cap, shorts, and a button-down shirt, a far cry from this image, head shaved in prison whites, hustled into the prison known as Secot. He was placed in a cell with about 25 other prisoners at Secot.
He was traumatized by being at Secot and fearful of many of the prisoners in other cell blocks who called out to him and taunted him in various ways.
Van Hollen says their conversation was Abrego Garcia's first communication with anyone from the outside world since arriving in El Salvador on March 15th. Van Hollen tells me Salvadoran officials provided Abrego Garcia with no information and that the senator spoke with the country's vice president himself.
What did Abrego Garcia say that the officials in El Salvador told him about why he was sent to that prison and how long he would be there?
They haven't told him anything about why he was sent.
Or how long he would be there?
They didn't tell him anything about that. In fact, I asked the vice president exactly that question. Why is he here? Is he violating any laws in El Salvador? Do you have any proof that he's committed a crime? No. Why is he here? Because the Trump administration is paying us to keep him here.
President Trump insists Abrego Garcia is a violent gang member, though his family denies it, and he has no criminal convictions. President Trump today blasting Van Hollen as a grandstander.
Look, he's a fake. I know him. I know them all. They're all fake. And they have no interest in that prisoner. That prisoner's record is unbelievably bad.
Van Hollen firing back. that Trump and his ally El Salvador's president Nayib Bukele are spreading lies, accusing Bukele of staging this photo of the meeting last night. 2 cocktail glasses conspicuously in the image Bukele posted on X, claiming the senator and Abrego Garcia were, quote, sipping margaritas.
When I first sat down with Kilmar, we just had glasses of water on the table. I think maybe some coffee. And as we were talking, one of the government people came over and deposited 2 other glasses on the table with ice, and I don't know if it was salt or sugar around the top, but they look like margaritas. And let me just be very clear, neither of us touched the drinks that were in front of us. Nobody drank any margaritas or sugar water or whatever it is. But this is a lesson into the lengths that President Bukele will do to deceive people about what's going on.
Senator Van Hollen says the bottom line is the administration is, quote, blatantly and flagrantly defying the Supreme Court, which has ordered them to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return to the United States.
This case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States of America. If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights and due process for everyone else in America.
And Rachel Scott joins us now from the White House. And Rachel, what do we know about where Abrego Garcia is right now?
Well, Stephanie, we learned today that Abrego Garcia was recently moved out of that notorious prison in El Salvador to a different detention center. Van Hollen told reporters that the conditions there are better, but still no sign that he'll be released and returned back here to the United States. Stephanie.
Fantastic reporting. Thank you so much, Rachel. And now to the new details emerging in the aftermath of the deadly school shooting at Florida State University Thursday. The community in mourning after a lone gunman shot and killed 2 people, injuring 6 others. The suspect is 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner, the stepson of a local sheriff's deputy. He was shot by responding officers and taken into custody. And we're learning more tonight about the lives lost as survivors begin telling their brave stories. Here's Faith Abube in Tallahassee, Florida.
Tonight, authorities giving their account of the final moments before a shooter unleashed a deadly rampage through the Florida State University campus, killing 2 people and injuring 6 others. Among the dead, Tiru Chaba, a father of 2, and Robert Morales, a former assistant football coach at nearby Leon High School. Authorities identifying Phoenix Eichner as the shooter, a stepson of a longtime local sheriff's deputy. Investigators say around 11 a.m. Thursday, Eichner drove into a campus parking garage and finally exited at 11:51 a.m. The first shot just moments later, between 11:56 and 11:57 a.m. By 12 noon, the shooter and law enforcement agents in a standoff. Investigators say officers shot him when he refused to drop his weapon. The suspect seen here being shackled to a stretcher in an ambulance. Authorities say he has refused to answer any of their questions. Police say the gun he allegedly used was his stepmother's previous service weapon. The suspect's biological mother telling ABC News at first they thought he was one of the students injured before being told he was the shooter.
Oh my gosh.
We met one of the victims, Madison Askins, in her hospital bed.
All I could think of is what my mom and dad always told me to do during an active shooter drill. Stay down, play dead.
Madison telling us that in that moment, all she wanted to do was reach for her phone and say goodbye to her parents.
I wanted to call my dad, tell him I loved him. So that was rough.
The suspect's stepmother, Leon County Sheriff's Deputy Jessica Eichner, was once Sheriff's Department Employee of the Month, now on a personal leave of absence. Her department reeling.
How disappointing is it to have this connection to this agency in this way?
Yeah, this is tough at any level, but to be personally impacted and to see how things unfolded on yesterday obviously is very disappointing.
The university honoring the victims in a vigil. Madison tells us she's grateful to the officer who found her and stayed by her side.
Somebody's going to show up. Somebody will be here soon. I just had to rely on another person, and the one who showed up, I'm glad she did.
Our thanks to Faith Abube there in Tallahassee. And we're joined now by Dr. Richard McCullough, the president of Florida State University, who is joining us from campus at the Athletic Center. First and foremost, Dr. McCullough, our deepest apologies go out to the entire FSU community. You are the leader there. I know this is a very difficult time for you, the staff, that entire campus. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us tonight. We've heard you say that your priority is taking care of people. We heard what you had to say at the vigil. We understand that you visited some of those survivors at the hospital. What can you tell us about them? How are they holding up?
Oh, they are holding up great given the circumstances. It's a very emotional time. We're completely heartbroken, but resilience of our students has been amazing. We visited them. Some of them I would go in the room and come out happier after seeing. They're just incredible. Their strength and ability to, work their way through such a terrible tragedy is really unbelievable. So proud of them.
Sir, you wrote in a statement yesterday that the FSU community will lean on one another and remember who we are. For those who may not be familiar with the area, with campus, with the school, tell us a little bit more about how you describe this FSU community.
Oh, the FSU community is unbelievable. I've been here for almost 4 years now, and when we came here, when I was interviewing and when I came here, the warmth of the community and the people here really make this just an incredibly special place. And it's really unlike any university that I've been at, and I've been at many. And just the welcoming environment, we're the student experience, the students here love it. Every student that I've ever talked to, the First Lady and I have ever talked to, they just say they love it and they wish they could stay here forever. They're really sad when they're graduating. We were ranked #1 student experience by Princeton Review this year, and I think it's just a testament to the wonderful people that are here.
And today we saw some students going back to their classrooms to collect the belongings they had to leave behind. And of course, it's going to take some time to process what's happened there and begin to put the pieces back together. Do you think the FSU community will ever be the same?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we absolutely will be the same. I mean, this was something that changed us, changed the campus, but it's not something that we won't, bounce back from, because the people here are resilient, and, we will bind together to help this to make us stronger. I think that you're right. I mean, it's just the impact that it had is, this is not something that as a president that you ever, are trained for even. And, but we will come together, and because we are Florida State and we are that strong and our students are amazing. At the vigil today, I was told that we were probably going to have another vigil because we didn't think very many people were going to come because it's Easter weekend and a lot of the students have left and we canceled classes for the last couple of days. And I couldn't see any space where there wasn't a person. It was unbelievable, the number of people who came out. I think that Florida State University.
Yeah, it was clear there was an outpouring of love and support there. Been at least 80 mass shootings in this country this year. It is a frightening statistic. Are there any changes you'd call for on campus after this terrible act of violence?
Our police officers responded literally immediately. And so the investments that we've made, the training, we just had an active shooter training just about a month ago, I think. And so we were really, really prepared for this to happen. It's just tragic that this continues to be. The senseless violence that happens on campus is just terrible.
It really is. This is something no one should ever have to witness, especially students just trying to go to school and learn. Dr. Richard McCullough, really appreciate your time. We extend our deepest sympathies to you and the community there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
Late today, ABC News obtained the disturbing 911 call about the arson attack targeting Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. His home set on fire with his family inside. Authorities say the suspect called 911 himself to explain why he did it. Here's Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Kaczorski.
Tonight, the chilling 911 call authorities say this man made moments after allegedly firebombing the home of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Well, I don't really have an emergency. I would like to apologize.
In a level tone, police say accused arsonist Cody Balmer describes his motive for the attack on the first night of Passover.
Governor Josh Shapiro needs to know that Cody Balmer will not take part in his plans for what he wants to do to the Palestinian people. All he has is a banquet hall to clean up.
The caller branding Shapiro a monster, but then appearing to give himself up.
You all know where to find me. I'm not hiding, and I will confess to everything that I had done.
In an exclusive interview, ABC's George Stephanopoulos asked the governor whether this was a hate crime.
I recognize when you're in these positions of power, there are people out there that want to do you harm. But I try not to be captive to the fear, and I try not to worry or think about why people want to do that harm.
Our thanks to Aaron Kaczorski. About 10,000 previously classified records on the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy have been released. Kennedy was shot in 1968 at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, just moments after winning California's presidential primary. Among the released pages, the shooter's handwritten note saying RFK must be disposed of, like his brother was. He confessed to the assassination, was convicted, and is still serving his life sentence. We're tracking severe storms over the holiday weekend. From Texas to the Great Lakes, multiple tornadoes have been reported across the Midwest, with more than 50 million people on alert. Let's get right to meteorologist Lee Goldberg from our New York partner station, WABC. Hey there, Lee.
Hey, Stephanie. Unfortunately, we have another slow-moving storm parked over the middle of the country and severe weather along at multiple rounds of storms. To the east, it's a summer warm-up. To the west, it's snowing in the Rockies, several inches here. The fire danger is decreasing over parts of New Mexico, but still elevated into at least this evening. Now, the severe threat tonight's from Texas all the way into the southern Great Lakes. Enhanced tornado threat over Oklahoma. That severe threat will start to shift south and east tomorrow, closer to Dallas, south of Springfield, and then the flood threat is enhanced all the way from Texas into parts of Illinois, and up to 6 inches of rain can fall. That is northwest of the flood zone from last week. Some of that water will drain into Mississippi. For Easter Sunday, still stormy again in the middle of the country, dry on both coasts. That summery feel in the northeast, that'll disappear. Back to spring cool, but not cold as we go through Easter. Stephanie?
All right, Lee, thanks so much. Turning now to new developments in the Idaho college murders case. 4 students stabbed to death in an off-campus house. The judge delivering several setbacks to Brian Kohberger's defense, including allowing specific testimony from one of the survivors. Here's ABC's chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman.
Tonight, the judge in the case against Brian Kohberger largely siding with prosecutors in a string of rulings on what evidence will be allowed at his upcoming trial. Judge Stephen Hippler clearing the way for the state's expert who will testify Kohberger's DNA was found at the crime scene on a knife sheath like this one.
What does a knife sheath at a scene mean? That's going to be the ultimate question.
Prosecutors claiming Kohberger bought the knife and sheath on Amazon before he stabbed 4 college students to death near the University of Idaho.
This happened in our house. We don't know what.
As for that surviving roommate heard on that 911 call, the judge ruling her account of seeing a masked intruder with bushy eyebrows can be used at trial. The defense claimed it would bias the jury, but the judge called her descriptions remarkably consistent. Prosecutors want to show the jury Kohberger's eyebrows in this selfie that they say was taken just hours after the murders. Finally, that white Hyundai Elantra spotted on security cameras at and around the crime scene, the judge allowing a state expert to testify that it is the same make and model that Kohberger drove.
Our thanks to Matt Gutman. Measles cases across the United States are now reaching almost triple what they were for all of last year. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported today that the outbreak has reached 800 cases across 24 states. 2 deaths are confirmed and 1 is under investigation. 96% of the cases are people who were unvaccinated or whose vaccination status was unknown. If the current rate continues to grow at this pace, the U.S. could surpass the 2019 total of cases, possibly reaching the highest level since 1992. Coming up, imagine winning $30 million in the lottery and then it all goes wrong. A sneak preview of this special 2020 Unlucky Numbers. And Governor Josh Shapiro tells his story about that horrific attack. It's his first interview since an arsonist charged into his home while his family was sleeping. And next tonight to that exclusive interview with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro in the wake of the arson attack on his home last weekend. The suspect is facing multiple charges, including attempted murder and terrorism. Our George Stephanopoulos sat down with Governor Shapiro and toured the damage to his official residence with him and Pennsylvania's First Lady, Lori Shapiro.
Just hours after Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and his family celebrated the first night of Passover, 38-year-old Cody Balmer tried to kill the governor by setting fire to his official residence.
How are you all doing? How's the family doing?
Yeah, we're doing okay. You know, our kids are resilient. Lori's been a rock. And I'm trying to be a good dad, a good husband, a good governor in that order.
But not the easiest thing in the world to deal with.
I think they've been really reassured, as I think we all have, by the outpouring of support that we've gotten from all corners.
Yeah, he scaled the fence somewhere right around here. Had a bag of, that contained some Molotov cocktails and a metal type of hammer. And our understanding is he kind of laid in wait here for
I heard maybe in that bush for a little while as well.
And he tripped off one of the security sensors here, which prompted a state trooper to come out and try and figure out what was going on.
While he was here?
While he was here. It was dark, and the trooper wasn't able to spot him. And that allowed him to come up here along this walking path and through the rose garden. He broke this second window here, the window on the right, hit it with a hammer, threw a Molotov cocktail in there. And that immediately set off
all the alarms, right?
Fire and explosion. And what appears from the footage is he didn't go through this window. He took a few more steps down here, past the double doors, and then this window, which also leads into the state dining room. He smashed this with the hammer. You can still see the glass on the ground.
Oh yeah, you can see it. Oh man, you can still smell.
And it is much better now. Just hours before, Lori and I were seated probably right about here at a long table conducting our Passover Seder.
And you had 3 of your kids home?
3 of our 4 kids were here. The other one was in college. A bunch of round tables, and we had our family, we had, I get emotional, I was thinking about it. Had our family, we had guests from the community from across Pennsylvania. It was just a really beautiful night. We were probably downstairs till almost midnight, and then went upstairs, maybe got in bed around 1 o'clock, and this happened about an hour later.
Around 2, right?
Authorities said Balmer admitted to harboring hatred towards Governor Shapiro, and had he confronted Shapiro in the residence, would have beaten him with his hammer. Pennsylvania State Police said Balmer later called 911, identified himself, and said Shapiro, who is Jewish, needs to know that he will not take part in his plans for what he wants to do to the Palestinian people. Balmer, being held without bail, faces a series of charges including arson, burglary, attempted murder, and terrorism.
It's our first time back in this room.
It is? Wow.
I was in here at about maybe 3 o'clock in the morning with the fire chief when it became immediately apparent to me this wasn't just, an accidental fire, candle being left on or something.
You said it was clear to you it's not an accidental fire. It's clear to everyone now that that's not what happened. Was this a hate crime?
I think that's a question for the prosecutors to determine. They're going to determine motive.
But what does your gut tell you? I mean, this man was talking about Gaza, talking about Palestine, talking about his hatred for you.
I recognize when you're in these positions of power, there are people out there that want to do you harm. I try not to be captive to the fear, and I try not to worry or think about why people want to do that harm.
You say you don't want to be captive to it, but this is something we're seeing. This is a dramatic and scary example of it. We're seeing this kind of rise in threats and attacks all across the country. Homeland Security has been warning about it for years.
Yeah. It's real. I mean, this is sadly a real part of our society today. and it needs to be universally condemned, George. I don't care if it's coming from the left, from the right. I don't care if it's coming from someone who you voted for or someone who you didn't vote for, someone on your team or someone on the other team. I think every single leader has a responsibility to speak and act with moral clarity and condemn this kind of violence.
Are you surprised he was able to get this far, actually get into the mansion?
Look, there were clearly security failures, and I want you to know I have confidence in the Pennsylvania State Police to learn from it, to address it. We're bringing in a third party, an independent law enforcement leader to review our protocols, to review our systems and make them even better.
You talked about hearing from fellow governors, people from all over Pennsylvania, all over the country. Have you heard from President Trump?
I haven't.
Not at all?
No.
Anybody in the administration?
I heard immediately that day from Director Patel of the FBI, and I've heard from Attorney General Bondi.
Attorney General Bondi has not yet said this was an act of domestic terrorism. Do you believe it was?
I think that's a question for the prosecutors, both the local district attorney and the Department of Justice.
Why don't you want to address that question? Because we even saw Senator Schumer today sent a letter to the Attorney General saying he believes this should be labeled and investigated as a hate crime.
I'm not sure it's helpful for people on the outside to be weighing in with their opinions here, George, no matter who they are. You've asked me a couple times why I haven't sort of given you maybe the kind of answer that you're seeking. I want to explain why.
Yeah.
I know as a former prosecutor how important it is to follow the evidence and apply the law, and to do so without fear or favor. In this case, I'm the victim of the crime. I'm not the prosecutor. The prosecutors will weigh all of the different evidence, determine what the motive is. I think for me to dwell on that, to focus on that, is not my job.
Part of that job is to combat the kind of conditions we're seeing that create the opportunity for situations like this. Pennsylvania is no stranger to this. We saw the attack in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018. How do you combat this kind of hate?
By speaking and acting with moral clarity. Let me explain. Immediately following the assassination attempt on the former president, now president, in Butler, Pennsylvania, I condemned that in the strongest of terms. I spoke to the victims. I went to Butler. When the assassin who killed the U.S. healthcare CEO was caught in Altoona, Pennsylvania, I immediately went there and condemned that kind of violence in clear terms. And I think it's also important when you're not dealing with a traumatic event in Butler, in Altoona, or here in Harrisburg, to be leading every day in a way that brings people together and doesn't just continually divide us.
I know you know this, but Republican Congressman of Pennsylvania comes out and says that your rhetoric about President Trump, he didn't quite say is partly to blame for this, but he cited it as something that people have to get under control.
Again, I think leaders have a responsibility to speak and act with moral clarity, and that particular congressman failed yet again.
The governor and first lady are determined to welcome everyone back to their home.
This is a room for everyone. This is a room that has a mezuzah on the wall and a Christmas tree in the corner and a prayer mat for those who are celebrating Ramadan. And we want this place to be back and functioning for people of all faiths and all walks of life as quickly as possible.
Not going to change.
Absolutely not.
Our thanks to George Stephanopoulos and his team for that extensive conversation with the governor. Coming up, Good Samaritans were caught on a Ring camera saving a man from a truck that crashed into a nearby lake. What local police are saying about that accident. But up next, how the high price of eggs is impacting holiday spending for Easter this Sunday. We take a look in By the Numbers. Now to some brighter news. Easter is this Sunday, and judging by online spending trends, it looks like Americans are ready to celebrate. We see you, candy lovers, we see you. So grab your basket and let's take a look at Easter purchases by the numbers. According to Adobe, sales of Easter-related goods are outpacing last year's. Purchases are up 132% for items like Easter baskets, plastic eggs, holiday decor, and chocolate. Egg dyeing kits and materials are up by 388%, but Easter egg hunt hosts are definitely looking for egg alternatives, likely because egg prices, remember those? They have soared 60% higher than a year ago. That's driving up sales on tasty options like marshmallows. Their sales are up 190%. A whopping 587% is the sales hop on plastic eggs. You get what we did there? And jelly bean sales spiked 385%. They're the top selling Easter candy for the third year in a row. Trending items online include bubbles, plush bunnies, chalk, and coloring books. But if you haven't shopped for Easter yet, Adobe predicts this Saturday will have some of the best discounts. There's time. Coming up, the new pill by drug makers Eli Lilly is showing promise for treating diabetes and weight management. And later, is there life outside of our planet? That's the big question. A lead researcher from Cambridge joins to uncover the mysteries of our solar system. So listen to this. Imagine you win the lottery. You think your life is made. But for one man, the exact opposite happened. We have a preview of tonight's 2020 unlucky numbers. Here's Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman.
We all dream of a moment in life that will instantly change everything. A stroke of luck, and nothing will ever be the same again. That's exactly what happened to a man with a name you will never forget, Abraham Shakespeare.
Wow, Abraham Shakespeare was on a trucking route with his colleague, Michael Ford. They stopped at a convenience store.
Mike Ford, who's the driver, says, "You need anything?" Abraham, who's staying in the truck, says, "Yeah, give me 2 quick picks."
Right here at this gas station in a town with a name you just can't make up, Frostproof, Florida. 1 stop, 2 quick pick lottery tickets, one of which would change his life forever. A jackpot worth $30 million.
Hello, Florida. It's Wednesday, November 15th, and here are tonight's winning numbers. 12.
When Abe realized he'd won the lottery, he wasn't even sure it was real. So he brought the ticket to his cousin, Ashley McMillan.
I looked up at him, and I looked at the ticket again, and I looked up at him. I said, you won $30 million. He said, okay, I just wasn't sure. I needed somebody I could trust to tell me that. And I was like, do not show this to anybody else. You go to Tallahassee and cash this in immediately.
News of Abe's win quickly spread across the state of Florida.
It was at this convenience store that Abraham Shakespeare bought the lotto ticket that changed his life.
A Lakeland man is waking up a millionaire this morning. 40-year-old Abraham Shakespeare. He had the winning numbers, and Mr. Shakespeare, I'd like to give you my phone number.
Yeah. He opted to take home the lump sum of $17 million. But then after taxes, he ended up with $12 million.
Still, $12 million is a huge chunk of change for a man with a pretty humble background who came from the central Florida town of Lakeland.
Lakeland is small town feel with a little bit of city in it, beautiful lakes. Areas are quiet, some parts are rural, and it's in between Orlando and Tampa.
And here in Lakeland, Abe lived in a modest neighborhood where many folks struggled to make ends meet.
This is the famous Abraham Shakespeare's ex-home, where he rented and lived.
This is where they lived before.
This is where they lived before he won the lottery. It was set up just like this. Nothing's changed besides painting.
Pretty modest place.
Pretty modest.
Abraham's life has been hard-scrabble for its duration. Abraham dropped out of school. He had been in a little bit of trouble as a youth, nothing major, just little petty theft kind of things. And as he grows older, he takes on a series of odd jobs. Riding the garbage truck for the city of Lakeland, sweeping up in somebody's barber shop.
Abraham had a strong friendship with Greg Smith, who owned a barber shop.
He was working at my barbershop as a cleanup guy, sweeping up and mopping floors. He was a less fortunate person, so let him work, get paid, or buy him something to eat. Abraham was an easygoing person. He took life just as it came.
What kind of guy was he?
He was a humble guy. Humble, respectful. He wasn't a hard ass. He was a good dude. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't do dope. He was just trying to survive, trying to make it in the world as most people do, but without being in the limelight of problems and trouble.
Even though he didn't have a whole lot, he was very content.
Abraham has all of this money. He can move anywhere he wants to, but instead, he stays home. He stays in Lakeland.
I think to a lot of people's surprise, Abraham did not go buck wild, as they say, when he got his money. He didn't overindulge.
Abraham says, I want to buy a car. So off me and Abraham went to the car dealership. And Abraham walks up on this particular car and he liked it. And I'm like, yeah, Abraham, that's nice, but you know, it's a used car. Used or whatever, it was a gem to him.
He said he would go to Denny's to eat breakfast. He bought a Rolex watch from a pawn shop.
He come to the shop every day, millionaire, come to the shop, sweep the floor. Yes. And you better not drop a penny on the floor. First thing he gonna say, he gonna pick it up. He gonna say, pennies make dollars.
Abraham doesn't spend much money on himself, but the one thing that he really wants is a new house. So he buys a 5,000 square foot, $1 million mansion.
Prior to winning the lottery, he would walk around this exclusive neighborhood and he would dream about living in one of those homes. He was able to buy his dream home for $1 million in the gated community.
And Abe quickly opened his doors to friends and even strangers. And one of those strangers was Centuria Butler, who was at the time down on her luck when she met Abe at a party he threw at his new house.
At the end of the night, he was like, where are you going? I was like, might be staying in my car tonight. He was like, well, you know, you can stay here until you get on your feet. He literally let me as a stranger move into his house.
A friendship blossomed. Centuria and Abe grew close, and eventually they welcomed a son named Jeremiah.
When the baby is out and they bring him over to the bed, Abraham with his long arms, he swoops in and he takes the baby right out of her hands. And he's holding him. And he's like, yeah, I got my snook and pookum.
But for Abe, it wasn't enough just to provide for his own family. Abe seemingly wanted to help everyone. And pretty soon, his generosity spread throughout Lakeland.
When Abraham won the lottery, all of Lakeland and Polk County won the lottery.
People did not hesitate to come to Abraham and say, you know, I need money for my mortgage. They're going to foreclose on my house. They're going to repossess my car. I've got to bury my mother. Everything you can think of that someone needed.
Now you're dealing with all kind of people you want to look out for and people you don't want to look out for, but everybody's there saying, give me, let me have.
Abraham wins this huge lottery, and then within a day, everyone wants a piece.
I couldn't even talk with him in 10 minutes. His phone was ringing. By the time he get off the phone with that one, another one would call him.
There were days that random women with car full of kids would pull up and say, oh, the Lord led me to you, and I would be like, no, that would be Google Maps, honey.
It got tiresome to him. He got fed up with it a lot.
I really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person, but got people coming up asking for money.
And Abe's fortunes might be about to take an even more serious turn for the worse.
His friend comes forward and says, hey, that's my ticket. All those multi-million dollars, they're mine.
Abraham Shakespeare was on the verge of losing his entire fortune.
Our thanks to Matt Gutman and the 2020 team for sharing that preview with us. You can watch the full episode tonight at 9 Eastern, and it will stream later on Hulu. Well, the Good Samaritans who came together to rescue a driver just in the nick of time, and a new pill shows promise in the treatments of diabetes and the miracles of Mother Nature 3 months after the deadly Los Angeles wildfires. These stories and more in tonight's rundown.
Good Samaritans in Utah jumped into action after seeing a truck crash in a nearby lake.
He was telling me, he's like, we need to go help him. I'm like, yeah, we do.
The group was working at a job site nearby and pulled the driver out of the water. The driver of the truck was the only occupant, and he was transported to the hospital in critical condition. Local police are investigating the cause of the accident. The Trump administration announced that commercial fishing can now take place in a previously protected zone of the Pacific Ocean, home to whales and endangered sea turtles. Former President George W. Bush established the Pacific Islands Heritage Marine National Monument in 2009, and it was expanded by President Obama to nearly 500,000 square miles. The Trump administration said that the move will help make the United States the world's dominant seafood leader. New research released by drug maker Eli Lilly shows a new oral GLP-1 pill may be just as beneficial to those with type 2 diabetes as injectable GLP-1 drugs. Eli Lilly's announcement comes just days after Pfizer announced that it would scrap the development of a once-daily GLP-1 pill for diabetes and weight loss management. House Democrats are demanding the White House preserve the independence of the Smithsonian Institute after President Donald Trump signed an executive order in late March that directed federal agencies and the Smithsonian to eliminate what the order calls anti-American and improper content from the vast network of museums and national parks. Trump, in the order, singled out the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which he said perpetuated race-centered and divisive ideas. Young women ages 18 to 25 in the United States are now binge drinking more than their male peers, according to new research based on the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. The research published Wednesday shows a reversal of historic trends. While men in older age groups still drink more heavily overall, this shift among young adult women is raising alarms in the medical community. In January, the Eaton fire left behind charred devastation, with miles of hillsides and neighborhoods turned to ash. But something miraculous is happening thanks to the resilience of Mother Nature. From the smallest animals like the California newt to coyotes, life is returning to the fire-ravaged hillsides in the burn zone.
And next tonight, it's been a landmark week for those seeking the answer to one of humanity's existential questions. Are we alone? Researchers this week say they've been given the strongest indication yet of extraterrestrial life, not in our solar system, but 120 light years away on a massive planet known as K2-18b. We are thrilled to be joined by the lead researcher, Dr. Niku Madhusudan, a Cambridge University astrophysicist. Thank you so much for your time. So, in essence, for our viewers, sum this up in a way that's really easy to understand. What do you all think is on this planet, and why is this such you've put this, a revolutionary moment?
Yeah, so what we are finding are tentative hints of one of two molecules, DMS or dimethyl sulfide, or DMDS, dimethyl disulfide, one or both of these molecules on this exoplanet. Now, both these molecules are known to be produced primarily by light here on Earth and have been predicted to be good biosignatures on other exoplanets. So that is the major development here. Even the very fact that we are finding any hint at all, and there is a possibility of life at all in an exoplanet, is a major advancement in the search for life.
That's absolutely incredible. So if this planet does in fact have life, how can we as humans start to learn more about it? It's just so far away.
Yeah, so we want to do two things, right? So our initial observation, this was just one observation with one instrument on JWST, and we are already seeing some tentative features. So we want to get more observations to make sure it is really robust, this detection of these molecules. And then we also want to do theoretical studies and experimental work to make sure that what we are seeing in that environment is absolutely due to life and not produced by some other non-biological mechanism.
That's fascinating. So I'm going to jump to what many people are probably thinking. If you have an ocean that could be brimming with marine life, could there be life on the surface? Aliens. We're talking about aliens. Maybe not little green aliens, but any type of aliens. What do you think?
So it's too early for us to speculate on any form of complex life. But microbial life is what we are talking about, and even that is a major advancement if it turns out to be true.
It truly is. So what are you and your colleagues now focused on with regards to this distant planet?
So, as I said, we want to get more observations to make sure what we are seeing is really robust. We are happy that the signal is there as we see it now, but we want to be even more robust. And then we want to do more work to make sure that it cannot be caused by any other process but life. So we'll either discover life or we will discover a new chemical process. Either way, it's a monumental achievement for the field.
Okay. Give us some hope. Do you think we will find definitive proof that humanity is not alone in the universe in our lifetime?
I personally think that is very much possible, actually. Over the next 10 years, there are the number of targets and the facilities that we have. It is certainly feasible.
An incredible discovery in the ongoing search for life. Doctor, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Absolutely fascinating. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
Nintendo Switch 2 pre-sales are once again set to begin on April 24th after tariff concerns led to a temporary pause. There were also worries that tariffs would drive up prices of the long-awaited hybrid console. Now, Nintendo maintains that the price of the Switch 2 will remain as announced, $449.99. But the cost of Nintendo Switch 2 accessories, that could go up. Well, there's some exciting news for Star Wars fans tonight. Oscar-nominated actor Ryan Gosling is joining the franchise and starring in a new Star Wars film. Gosling surprised fans at a Star Wars celebration in Tokyo, his mom proving that Ryan himself has been a fan of the films for years, showing off his childhood Star Wars betting. Few details are known about the movie right now, but we do know the new standalone story is called Starfighter. The film is expected to reach theaters Memorial Day weekend of 2027. And I love that his mom held on to those sheets. That is my kind of mom. Save everything. Well, that's exciting news. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Stephanie Ramos. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you for streaming with us.